Thank you, each one of you, for participating tonight. First question is there a distrust or friction between law enforcement and the minority community? And if so, what is the main cause of that distrust?
The main reason for the distrust is a lack of communication, a lack of knowing officers knowing the community knowing the officers. So that's what the distrust comes. Once you understand one another, then you can trust. But if I don't know you, I don't trust you.
I think a lot of it has to do with social media. A lot of things happen at a fast rate these days rather than 10 or even 20 years ago. And we get highlights about things that happen. And it's hard to defend some of those things when we don't have all the evidence or all the facts not before us. And I think it's pretty normal for people to think that this really happened. Maybe the media is only focusing on one side of the issue. But hopefully we can, as a community, come together and work together to solve it.
We have a little bit of a catch-22 situation. The fact of the matter is that crime is heightened and crime statistics are heightened in minority areas. Those areas are requesting more police patrols and some kind of control over the crime. More police means more interaction with the police and also more interaction to what's been the criminals. What you've got is sort of a catch-22 situation where you've mixed a heightened amount of criminals with more police officers, and which has equated to more violence and more negative interaction with the police by the minority community. I sat on a board and commission once in Austin, repealing an ordinance where children were required to have bicycle helmets. We looked at the statistics of who was getting ticketed for bicycle helmets. Well, it was about, don't quote me on the statistics, I think it was about 98% of the kids ever cited for not having a bicycle helmet was a minority kid. And so their first interaction with a police officer was something negative. It was getting in trouble for not having a bicycle helmet. Of course, we're Republicans, we believe. Maybe we shouldn't have the ordinance at all, and maybe we should be interfering with everybody's everyday lives for every reason.
I believe that what drives a lot of issues, of course, is history. The other is experiences, the reportable experiences of negative relationships associated with law enforcement, even when you are a decent, hard-working citizen in the community. Some years ago, the same question was raised by the Kerner report. Otto Kerner, Ohio governor, who did a report following the riots of the 60s. And basically, it just simply points out that when you have communities that are isolated, disenfranchised, and you have high unemployment and a high number of young people, there is going to be more reportable misconduct. And then the question becomes, how is it treated by law enforcement? What do they know about it? And in the sense that we think in terms of law enforcement being a part of what we call protect and serve, the question that happens in communities of color is protect and serve who? And that becomes a real challenge. The thing that occurs, and I think social media is a really interesting point, when you have good kindling, it's easy to start a fire. And when you have an environment that has historically been less than satisfied, and you have a history that has been very disruptive and disenfranchised you, it's easy to get a fire going in that community.
What are your thoughts on police body cameras? Should all officers have them? Why or why not?
If you deal with the public, yes, I agree with body cameras. The cameras that you have in the vehicles can only handle a certain degree. And so a body camera, I've just visited with other officers, catches everything. So it protects the citizen and the officer should any questions arise, which in my instance, when I go to the courtroom, yes, questions do arise. So you take that body camera, you go over to your little computer and download it and keep it all on a disk for future reference.
That body cameras are just one of the tools in the mechanism that will help address the problem. Honestly, we need a more effective way to identify the bad seeds before they become bad seeds. Cameras only identify them after they've harmed someone. So we've got to do a better job of trying to get not only smarter officers and with more training, but also a better way of identifying those officers that we know are going to eventually get derailed derailed out there and become destructive in the community. The camera just won't do it alone, but it's just one more tool in the arsenal of things that will help address the problem.
Absolutely, without a doubt. I agree with body cameras. Number one, for the safety of both sides, whether it's police or those that are committing crimes. And the other thing is, if a person knows they're being watched, they have a tendency to do the right thing.
Yes, you need body cameras because, as the other panel said, I've been a police officer now for 40 plus years, and body cameras is a must, but they're good. But if you notice that dash cameras on police cars, where you actually have observed police officers beating on somebody unreasonably with dash cameras. So if you're going to have body cameras, you need to be trained, and there need to be some consequences toward the officers who turn these cameras off.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It feels like open season on black men in America, and I'm outraged. In fact, all Americans are at risk when bad actors in law enforcement use their guns instead of their heads.
And the second video is a CNN interview with Congressman Johnson in regards to his remarks.
But back to your point on how this is open season, I mean, here's the thing, what's implied in that, what you're not saying but implying is that then broad strokes on all police are the hunters out to kill. Is that really fair, Congressman?
Well, yeah, I think it's a fair accurization or a fair depiction of what's happening in society today. We find an overabundance, and we've got video evidence of black males who are being shot and killed by police officers. Now, that doesn't include the numbers who are being wounded, nor does it include the people who tasers are being used upon, which may or may not be necessary in a given situation.
Is it open season on black men in America?
In some places it is. You find that the majority of these incidents that happen, like in Ferguson, that just didn't happen at instant. That has been going on for a long time. And the administrators, I'm talking about the city administrators, the police departments, administrators, they knew that what was happening in their department. And to me, it looks like, when you look at Ferguson, and it's a lot of Fergusons throughout the United States of America, and you look at that, and you would say, yes, it is open season. He made a good statement there. But how do we stop that?
The statistics that I've researched shows that per capita, 1,000, I think it was 100,000, that it was 3.5 African Americans are involved in police shootings, African Americans. Hispanic race was 1.2, and the Caucasian white was 0.9. Just recently, African American is 21 times greater at risk of being shot from a police officer than any other group in America.
I'm not sure if Ferguson is the best example. There have been better examples more recently. Charlotte was one of them. I think open season might be a little bit of hyperbole, but we definitely have some statistical evidence that we have a problem. Again, is the chicken or the egg? Are we seeing more crime coming out of the black community? And let's be honest. Are we seeing, we've got recidivism rates, what do you call unmarried mothers? And we definitely have a crime problem. We have a crime problem coming out of the African American community right now. So let's be honest, why are we having that? And do we need to police in those neighborhoods? And are we having that collision of two forces that are not meeting very well right now?
Bishop Watson, 30-second rebuttal.
Yes, let's be honest. Let's be honest about who's in power. Let's be honest about who's receiving all the jobs. And when people don't get jobs, they do whatever it takes to survive. And if it's crime, then it's crime. Let's be honest. Let's be honest about the hiring practices of those that are in power. Let's be honest about the biases that people really have. Let's be honest.
I think that we need to, as an Americans, we need to understand we've got a problem with race. We hide that, we tip around that, we will not discuss. We've got a problem there. And we need to address that. And the powers that be is our law enforcement people, our courts, our penal institutions. If you look at the sentences on an African American and the Anglo, the same type of cocaine freaks, the African American get more time than the Anglo
And that's why you got a recidivism, and when they come out, they cannot get a job. So the thing that we need to look at is, start where it needs to be at. We've got a race problem.
I think that the real question for us to address is, what does it take to stop the attacks on black men in America? That's what the real question is. The attacks come in multiple ways. Of course, we've had loss of life. But then when you look at our incarceration rates, that's a serious attack on the black communities that we need to address, where disproportionate jail times are being signed. The guiding force behind this goes back to what we were originally talking about, and that was the fact that we have history and experience that teaches us that there's nothing in the system that we can effectively trust from birth to the grave, and that's a sad commentary.
I don't believe that there's open season on black men in America. But I do believe that it's always happened with minorities. I don't think there's anything different in 2015 than there was in 1972. I think it's still happening. You're just hearing more about it on the news. I don't think there's any big conspiracy about it.
There's been, in our society, from the 1776, we've had 5 civil rights movements. 1777, 1867, 1947, 1957, and of course, the last big war was 1967 when we had the riots. And all of these challenges were about nothing having changed. Whether you look back at 1972, there was lynching and violence. Whether you look back at 1777, there was lynching and violence. So the question is, we've got to get to the core of who we want to be. Not who we are, because who we are doesn't work. We've got to get to the core of who we want to be. And who we want to be are these civil rights statutes that we passed that assures that all men are created equal. Our conduct fails to demonstrate that. Our words and deeds are not showing that. Even though there's been great strides made, the seriousness of what occurs in our society in spurts and sputters, and in some cases very mean and vicious spurts and sputters. We've got to take and get a hold of ourselves and solve this problem. We've got to do it through our churches. We've got to change our practices. We've got to preach a gospel that says that we not only want to change, but we want to take and demonstrate that we've changed.
We just want a quick reaction, and specifically, what could the policemen have done differently, and what could the citizen have done differently?
Probably should have said something before getting that close to the police officer, just that happened. But I don't believe the police officer, you notice there was several there, and at least 2 other ones there, close to her, that did not shove her. So you had one bad apple there that shoved, and I disagree with that, Miss Etnette, doing that. And so, you know, you're gonna have a bad apple every once in a while, and that doesn't surprise me. I mean, I've worked with a lot of them, Miss Etnette. So that's, yeah, he shouldn't have shoved her, and she shouldn't have got too close to those police officers, because, you know, you had weapons and all kinds of stuff on the police officers, and she was too close to them.